Hi, I'm Christy and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I want to chat about all the October romance releases I've read so far. So I actually did this a few months back where there were like 3 or 4 romance new releases coming out on the same day. So I read them all and then kind of did like a review and chatted about all of them. So I thought it'd be fun to do it for this month just because there are so many new releases in October. Today when I'm filming, it's actually October 11th, and so we're kind of like a few days before the middle of the month, but I have already read so many new releases this month, thanks in part a lot to ARC, so I will talk about that in a second. But yeah, so I wanted to come on here and kind of give my thoughts on all of these new releases, which ones I would have prioritized, which ones I recommend getting to, not skipping, like all of those things. Of course, these are just my personal opinions, and you can take my reviews for what they are. If you listen to them, if it kind of helps you prioritize, like whatever the case, like this is why I'm doing this video. So I am just pulling up my Instagram little graphic that I made. So let me pull that up. So basically at the beginning of every month, I've done this all year where I will post all of the new releases that I'm excited to get to that month. And for October, there were probably 25, like at least 25 romance releases I wanted to get to, which by the way, if you don't follow me on Instagram, you should. I am way more active on there and post all the time. I love Instagram so much. That's where I started. So yeah, definitely go follow me if you're not already. So I'm just going to quickly count through here and see how many I have read so far this month that I have to talk about. So let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 and a half. Okay, so we have like 10 and a half to chat about. 10 I've read and 1 I am halfway through, so I'm going to chat about that one as well. Most of these I did have ARCs for, and if I didn't have ARCs, I made them a priority on their release date to get to. So ARCs are something that I love to do, which ARCs stand for Advanced Readers Copies, where you get them either from a publisher, you get it from the author, you get it from a PR team, and you get those with indie authors usually a couple weeks, sometimes a month out, but it's usually like closer to the release date. And you'll get an early copy basically of the book where you read it, and then you can like have your thoughts, have your review out before the book comes out to kind of help them with their marketing. I really love ARCs. It's just a way that I found works for me to like keep up to date on new releases and keep on top of them as well, because otherwise I'm just like drowning in new releases. But if I have like priorities, which are obviously my ARC reads, I'm going to get to those sooner. I'm going to get to them immediately and like knock those out of the way. I love a good checklist. And so that's how I like prioritize my reading every month. I have a checklist and I love when I can check off the books that I've read. It just makes me feel more productive. So I would say for October, I was most excited to get to Don't Forget Me Tomorrow by A.L. Jackson, Hopeless by Elsie Silver, and Caught Up by Liz Tom Ford. If I had to pick like my top 3, those are the top 3 that I was most excited for this month. So yeah, we're just going to jump into those. I have read those 3 and we're going to talk about all the rest that I have read as well. Of course, as always, if you ever want to see more of my thoughts or my full reviews on any of these books, I do review every book that I read. You can see that through my Goodreads, which is always linked in the description of all of my videos. So with that out of the way, we're just going to jump into it. I'm going to go kind of in order of release date, and then at the end of the video, I will tell you which 3 books maybe that I would prioritize. First up, on October 3rd, there were 3 romances released that I have read. So there was The Best Laid Plans by Carla Sorensen, The Stars on Our Side by Jennifer Hartman, and then The Phantom of Drury Lane by Kate Bateman. And my favorite of these 3 is definitely easily The Phantom of Drury Lane by Kate Bateman. I absolutely adored this one. This is basically a Phantom of the Opera retelling, but a historical romance novella. And it is just such a delight and so much fun. It's actually easily one of my favorite reads of this month. I loved it so much. We'll just chat about that one first. So basically in this one, this is a historical romance novella. It does exist in the same world as her Ruthless Rivals series. And you can definitely read this though as a standalone, but like the characters, you're going to hear about the family members of the heroine, like her family exists in that series. But like you won't miss anything if you haven't read the rest of the series as well. Basically in here, the heroine's family is kind of like these adventurers, these globetrotters, and they actually ended up getting shipwrecked, which was another novella from this author, which was The Desert Island Duke. And in that novella, we saw the heroine and her family get shipwrecked off of like the coast of Madagascar. And so they've been gone for like a few years traveling and then getting shipwrecked. But the beginning of the story is when they have come back to London. And at the same time, the hero is back after serving war, and he was like injured in Waterloo. He has like a scar across his face. The hero and the heroine have always been kind of involved in each other's lives. He's actually one of the friends of her brothers. So she grew up with him. He's always kind of picked on her, given her a hard time. They've kind of like teased each other. They actually even shared a kiss years ago, but they have both sworn to never speak of it again. And so they both have feelings feelings for one another, but they're both like afraid to talk about it because they both think the other one's like not interested, but of course they are. At the beginning of the story, we see the hero and the heroine running into one another for the first time in 3 years, and he knows the heroine loves like mysteries and adventures, and so he tells her that there is this phantom supposedly like haunting or lurking about Drury Lane Theater, which is a theater that he co-owns. And so he tells her there's even like this reward going on right now, like a bet of who can find and reveal the name of the phantom. And so she's like, okay, I'm kind of interested. And then he tells her, like, I can help you out. I can escort you into the theater because since I'm a co-owner, like I have a key. So they end up spending time together. And of course, the heroine and the hero have some moments along the way. She, of course, sees the phantom, which I mean, I think we all know where this is going of who's going to be the phantom, but it's just so much fun. We get to see her falling for the hero, falling for the phantom. Of course, things worked out. It's HEA, like, come on. So much fun. Loved it. Like, if you love Phantom of the Opera retellings, this one has a ton of fun nods to it. And it's just like a delightful little historical romance novella. So next up is The Best Laid Plans by Carla Sorensen. This is actually the first book in a new series from her. I would recommend this one just on the fact that it's a Montlake published book. So that means if you download it on Kindle Unlimited, you're getting the read and listen feature, which means you get the audiobook with the book as long as the book stays in your Kindle Unlimited library. So definitely recommend that, and an easy way to just like get an audiobook as well. So this one's small town. We have Grumpy Sunshine. The hero is a retired NFL player. He's kind of broody. And then the heroine is a home renovator who he has to end up working with and living with. It is slow burn as well, and it's kind of like that opposites attract vibe. So basically in this one, the hero, like I said, is a retired NFL player, and he's grieving the loss of his best friend when the story starts, and he ends up finding out that his friend ended up leaving him this house that he was in the middle of renovating. It's like a historical property, and so he was working with the heroine, who is like this historical renovator. Like, I used to love home renovation shows, so I did like that aspect of it. I also liked in here, there's like a hilarious meet cute where the heroine overhears that the new owners of the house are probably going to sell it before it's fixed up, and so she ends up handcuffing herself to the staircase of the house to prove like how determined she is to make this project work and how important it is to her. So we have that little like meet cute moment, and basically the hero's like, no, like I'm not gonna sell it immediately, like I do want to fix it up because that was what my friend had wanted, and like then I might sell it down the road, but like let's fix it up first. So it goes from there. He actually ends up moving into the carriage house with her on the property because he's like, you know, I need to be closer for all the renovation things. So yeah, this one was fun. I would say the first 2/3 of the book I enjoyed more. If you like a more slow burn, like it's definitely a fun time, and like I said, like since it came with the audio with the read and listen feature, I would recommend it. Next are The Stars Are on Our Side by Jennifer Hartman. So I have already chatted about this one in my September wrap up, but if you missed that, I will chat about it again here. So basically this is a new book from Jennifer Hartman, but it is a sequel, exists in the same world as her other books, Still Beating and Lotus, which even at the beginning of this book, she says you need to read those books first before jumping into this one, or should, I should say. But yeah, you definitely should read those books first before coming into this one. So that said, this book follows characters that we've already met in the previous 2 books. And basically in this one, it is a lot darker and just heavier and sadder than Still Beating. So the heroine of this book, she is actually a survivor of being kidnapped and held captive and almost murdered by this serial killer. So basically the serial killer, he was featured as well in Still Beating. He kidnaps 2 people who are not a couple and forces them to do things together, forces them to do things with him while he holds them captive in his basement. And eventually he wants basically the couple to fall in love together, and then he kills them in front of one another. So definitely dark. So in Still Beating, we saw that all happen at the beginning of the book, and then from there we saw the couple after the fact, like coming to terms with everything they went through. Definitely dark. This one though, it felt darker just because the heroine, she's like 2 or 3 years out of this captive situation where she actually escaped, but the person she was down there with did not make it. And so we see her kind of telling her story to this novelist, writing a story about it. And so it's brought up throughout the entire book, like all of the things that happened to her down there. So I think that's what made it feel super heavy. I also just wasn't a fan of the hero and the heroine together. I thought the heroine still had so much to overcome and go through. Like, she was still living in that grief, and I don't think she was ready for a new romance personally. And I was kind of like pulling the whole time for the other guy she was locked down there with, who obviously we know in this book that he does not have a happy ending. Like, he did not come out of that situation. So like, I just had a hard time seeing her in a spot to like have a romance with the hero of the book. And I felt really bad for the hero because he has all this like unrequited and pining love for her. And I was like, dude, you deserve better. Like, I don't know what's happening here. So yeah, there's that one. So, I mean, take that for what it is, but those are my thoughts on it. All right, next up is Don't Forget Me Tomorrow by A.L. Jackson. This one came out on October 5th, and I highly recommend this one. I loved it so, so much. I loved Love Me Today, which is the first book in this Time River series by this author earlier this summer. Loved it so much, and I was really excited for this book. So first of all, I mean, this cover deserves its own moment. I'm obsessed. These couple clinch covers are so good. I love a tattooed hero. Like, I'm obsessed with this cover so much. This one is small town, friends to lovers. The heroine is a single mom. We also have here the hero is her brother's best friend. We have mutual pining, and we have a little bit of light romantic suspense as well, which romantic suspense isn't always my favorite, but the way it's handled in this book, I definitely loved it. So I loved the hero and heroine in this one. They have this like mutual pining for one another that they've had for years. Here, the heroine is a single mom to her son, and one day or one night, she ends up hearing something in her house, and so she reaches out to the hero, who is one of her friends, and he ends up coming over and taking her and her son over to his house, and he's like, okay, you guys are staying with me, like, I'm gonna protect you. That is what I was made for. Like, he literally says that because protecting you is what I was created to do. Like, ugh, obsessed. Both of these characters in here have pined for one another for years, but they both haven't acted on it because of, in part, due to her brother being the hero's best friend, as well as I absolutely love this trope when the hero thinks he's too damaged, too broken, too dangerous to get involved with the heroine. Ugh, that's like one of my catnip tropes. I love it so much. But yeah, he has some dark secrets in his life and his past that we learn about, of why he's trying to push the heroine away from him, or keep her at a distance, I should say. So yeah, when she is staying with the hero, one of the nights, she actually overhears him moaning out her name from his room. So she ends up opening the door, and it kind of goes from there, where both of them realize that, you know what, maybe we are an option together. Ugh, it's just so good. The hero's tattooed, he's pierced, all the protectiveness vibes, which I love. So good. Definitely recommend grabbing it if you haven't grabbed it yet. So next up is Caught Up by Liz Tom Ford. This is the third book in her Windy City series. This one just came out on October 10th. It just came out yesterday. I binged it in a day, had a good time with it, but I will say I still loved The Right Move better. So yeah, let's jump into it. So Caught Up is a baseball hero, a single dad, a nanny romance, all of those things, amazing banter, a great friend group. It has all of that. So the heroine in this one, she's actually a famous pastry chef, and she recently won an award, and she's supposed to be like creating this new masterpiece, but she's struggling. Like, she can't figure out how to make anything. Like, she's feeling uninspired, and she just can't come up with something new. So she actually ends up quitting her job at the beginning of the story. And so she reaches out to her dad, tells him what happened. Her dad is actually the baseball coach. And so he's like, hey, this is the perfect time for you to come and spend time with me. Like, come on the road with me. One of my baseball players actually needs a nanny. Like, you can get the job. Like, you're perfect for it. So that is how she ends up working for the hero, who, like I mentioned, is a baseball player. He is the single dad to his 15-month-old son. And this book was just so cute. If you love single parent romances, I think you'll definitely love this one. I loved how in this one, like, we have that whole, like, it takes a village to raise a child moment going on, because not only is the hero obviously raising his son, but he has the help and the support of everybody around him. He has amazing teammates and the coach, and of course the nanny, and his friend group as well, which are the previous couples in the series. Just so well done, and I had a great time with it. So yeah, I feel like I don't need to convince anybody to pick this book up, because I feel like everybody already is. Like, it just hit #1 in the Kindle store. Super excited for the author. I love that on her release date. Like, super exciting. Like, I just had a good time with this one. It wasn't super perfect for me. Like, I was still comparing it to The Right Move, and the hero in that one, like Ryan Shea, top tier. I know I shouldn't, but like, I was comparing it the whole time in my head. I also felt like this one was just a little too long. I wanted a little bit more of the couple, like, on their own, but otherwise, like, this one's solid. It's amazing. Everybody's gonna pick it up anyways. All right, and then on October 12th, there are 2 books that I'm going to be chatting about. So first up is Madame. I don't know, I'm going to go with Madam. That's just like how I say it, but that is by Sarah Kate. And then we also have Good Game by Madison Fox. So I recommend picking up Good Game by Madison Fox, one of my favorites of this month. It is a debut romance as well from this author, and I just ate this one up and loved it. This is the first book in her new series, which is called The System. So basically in here, we follow these masked video game streamers who are super popular, have all this hype around them, but they don't show their faces when they play and stream the video games. So I love this one. Like, I'm somebody who has always played video games. I love video games. My entire family loves video games. It's a whole thing. But anyways, I think even if you don't enjoy video games, Madison wrote this one where it is like relatable and understandable, and like, you're gonna enjoy the romance no matter what. So in this one, the heroine is a rich girl. She's also an artist. And at the beginning of the story, she ends up helping out her best friend by being a server at this video game awards show. And so that's how she sees the hero for the first time. So he's masked with his two roommates, fellow video gamers, kind of have some moments right away and get flirty. They hook up. They're definitely feeling one another, but they end up going their separate ways after the award show. Then a few days later, the hero actually ends up running into the heroine accidentally, and they end up meeting, which of course to her, she thinks he is this new guy because he's unmasked. So she meets him like that, and then the hero of course knows who she is, and so we have this kind of like hidden secret identity trope, which I love and think it was done so well in this book. We see the heroine kind of having moments with the hero when he's unmasked, of course, and falling for him, and at the same time she's also still feeling the masked version of him, not knowing they're the same person. Loved it so much. There's a little bit of suspense in here as well, kind of this like mystery that unfolds, and it's just so good. Like, it doesn't read like a debut romance, and I mean that in the best way possible. Like, this definitely read like it was written by a seasoned author. It was just so good. I loved it. The chemistry, the passion, the banter, so good. Cannot wait for the rest of the series. All right, so then Madam by Sarah Kate. So this is book 6 in the Salacious Players Club series. So this whole series has followed this kink sex club, and basically we've already gotten all of the co-owners books, and now we've been getting some of the members of the club as well, their stories. So in this one we follow Eden, who is the heroine of the story, and we've seen her featured throughout the entire series. So it was so fun finally getting her book. I will say there was moments in here where I wasn't super sold on the throuple that happens. So basically it is the heroine, her ex-boyfriend, and then his current girlfriend. They all become a couple and have moments together. So there was just something about the girlfriend of the hero who I just like didn't super fall in love with or believe in, but like that's maybe a me thing. I don't know. Like, obviously this is a steamy fun time. I love the connection they all have. I love seeing the heroine get her HEA. She has some secrets in her real life that she doesn't want brought into the club life, and so it kind of goes from there, and it's just like a fun good time. Like, this whole series is delightful and fun, but if I had to choose on this day, I would read Good Game by Madison Fox. All right, and then on October 13th is Hopeless by Elsie Silver. This is of course book 5 in her Chestnut Springs series. This is a small town kind of cowboy western vibes series set in Canada. It's just been such a great series, and this is another solid addition to the series. So basically in this one, we follow Bo, who we have seen kind of hinted at and featured in the previous books in the series. This whole series kind of follows this one family, and he is the military hero brother of the group. And so I will say, going into this one, I thought it was going to be a lot darker and more traumatic because of his past, but it actually wasn't. Like, it was more on the case of the heroine being like having this darker traumatic past. So this one is a small town. We have age gap with the hero being older, and then it also is a fake engagement as well, with forced proximity with them being neighbors, and then her of course moving in with him as well. Basically in this one, the heroine is kind of from this family who's seen as like the trash of the town. Like, nobody likes them. They have zero respect for her family, for zero respect for her father, for her brothers, and she just kind of like lumped into the group with them. And so we see her working as a bartender because it's the only job she can get in town. She kind of wants to just save money and leave town and start somewhere new. So then we see the hero a little bit about his past. Like, he was kind of lost while going to save this prisoner of war. So he kind of went through some things, but I feel like it didn't get as dark as I thought it was going to be. So anyways, he's back in town, and he's kind of tired of the town and his family always like bothering him and asking him if he's okay and like what's he's going to do next and all of that stuff. So he ends up going to the bar every night to just like get a break and get away. That's when he sees the heroine there. And he already knows her, like their families have been neighbors their entire lives, but he hasn't really ever like paid attention to her, and so he starts to like take notice. So that does have hero falling first, and he ends up spending like every night at the bar with her, and they kind of become like friendly and flirty with each other. So one of the nights the heroine ends up telling the hero that she's just so sick of people treating her so crappily in the town. She's tried to go get like new jobs and nobody will hire her just on the fact of like what her last name is. And so he's like, I don't think that's the case. Like, I feel like, you know, people aren't treating you badly just because of your last name. Like, I can prove it to you. You can have my last name. Let's pretend to be engaged. So that kind of happens. It becomes this fake engagement. They obviously become very close. He moves her into his property and then, of course, to his house eventually. And it kind of just goes from there. And like I said, I thought it was going to be the hero having this like dark traumatic past where the heroine had to kind of pull him out to it, pull him back into the community. But it's kind of the opposite, with the hero having to pull the heroine out, kind of force her to go out publicly because she doesn't like the way that people treat her. So yeah, it went differently than I thought it would, but I mean, it's still solid. It's still good. People are still going to love it if you love this entire series. Like, it's still a solid book. Next up, I had an arc of Shadows of You by Catherine Cowles. This one is out on October 19th, and this is book 4 of her Lost and Found series. This one I have loved this entire series, and I was really excited to get into this one. So basically, this one has Grumpy Sunshine, we have a single mom heroine, a broken hero, we have the heroine in hiding, forced proximity, and then we have some romantic suspense vibes as well. Well, Catherine Cowles, I mean, she always brings it with the prologues. So in this one, we see in the very beginning of the prologue that the heroine and her daughter have to go and get these new identities, and they end up going into hiding because of reasons. So then we jump to 5 years later, and they've been living in Cedar Ridge, which is where the series takes place. So at the beginning of the story, we see that this deer gets caught up on her property and gets trapped kind of in this like mesh wiring. And so her and her daughter are trying to save it, and the hero ends up showing up, and he's part of like kind of like wildlife rescue, like Fish and Game. So he comes to help her out, and he's just like super grumpy and broody. And I loved in here how the heroine's daughter immediately calls him Mr. Grizz, because she's like, he's totally like a grizzly bear, like he's so cranky and he must be like hungry from hibernation. So it was so cute. But anyways, we kind of jump from there, and the hero ends up going to one of his family's dinners, which he's a brother of the Hartley family, which is who the series has kind of followed. And so the heroine and her daughter show up there one night as well, because they are friends with some of his siblings. And so it goes from there with them spending time together. The hero is like super protective, and he ends up actually staying with the heroine and her daughter when their lives are kind of getting threatened or endangered. I will say I did see the mystery kind of like suspense plot happening. Like I figured it out really early on, but that didn't take away from the romance for me. So yeah, I mean, this one was still solid. I loved the moments in here with the hero, how protective he is. I loved how he even protects the heroine's daughter. He takes her to her dance classes and calls her tiny dancer. Like so many cute, fun moments, lots of protectiveness vibes. I will say romantic suspense isn't my favorite thing, so this book isn't a favorite for me, but I think it's a solid addition to the series, and if you love the more romantic suspense vibes, you're going to really enjoy this one. And then on October 24th, I had an arc of this one. So this is Iris Kelly Doesn't Date by Ashley Herring Blake. This is the third book, part of her Bright Falls series, which the first book in the series, Delilah Green Doesn't Care, is still my favorite in the series, but this one was another solid addition to the series. Basically, this whole series is contemporary sapphic romances, and in this one we get fake dating. In this one we follow Iris, and she has this brand new career as writing romance novels, but she's kind of stuck on what to do for her second book. So she ends up deciding to try out for this play to kind of like take a break and get some ideas, and she runs into the heroine Stevie, who she realizes she knew from the previous night when they went home together after a bar, and then Stevie ended up getting sick and throwing up all over the place, so like the one night stand didn't go exactly as planned. Iris shows up at the play, and when she's there, she realizes that all the other people, all the other friends, and the ex of Stevie is there as well, and they all kind of think that Iris and Stevie are dating. So at first, Iris is about to correct them when Stevie asks her, like, can you just go along with it, please? Like, I just kind of let them all believe we were dating after that, like, one night stand hookup, almost hookup. This one was just a fun time. I liked kind of the slower build of their friendship and of course their romance. I love a fake dating trope, and so this one was a lot of fun. I really liked the friend group and kind of this like finding yourself, starting a new career, that kind of like part of your life. It was like just a fun time. I will say though, this one felt a little bit too long, like it's just over 400 pages, and it definitely started to feel like it. So that is one reason why it just didn't become my favorite in the series. All right, so next up is To Ravish a Rogue by Sam Nacosta. So this one is supposed to come out on October 29th, but this is the one that I'm in the middle of, and the audio actually already came out on Hoopla, so definitely go check that out. This one I'm absolutely obsessed with the cover. Basically, the author said that this was kind of her nod to Joanna Lindsey old clinch covers, and it definitely delivers. This is a monster, pirate, historical romance, and it is just so much fun already. Basically in here, we have a ton of different monsters and shifters and demons and dragons and gargoyles and all of these things. So in here, the couple are both kind of monsterish, and basically the heroine wants to sneak upon aboard this ship to kind of go where they're going. So she ends up getting on the wrong boat and realizes that she's joined this like pirate crew. And so she's pretending to be a cabin boy. And so she's dressed up as this like 12-year-old boy, but obviously the hero is the captain, and he like immediately knows that she's a woman underneath all this disguise. And so he ends up kind of messing with her and telling her that she has to stay with him in his room, and they have to sleep in the same bed. Like she has to be at his beck and call, and it's just such a delightful, fun time. All right, so those are all of the books that I've read so far for the October new releases. There are so many more still coming out at the end of the month. There are so many more I still want to get to. So yeah, let me know if you liked this video. I just wanted to share my thoughts on the ones I have read so far. So the ones I would recommend from the ones I've read already picking up this month. I mean, I feel like everybody's already going to pick up Caught Up, but I think the other two and a half you should definitely pick up is Don't Forget Me Tomorrow by A.L. Jackson. I'm obsessed with that one. Definitely a favorite of the month for me. And Good Game by Madison Fox. Love that one so much too. If you read historical romances or just want a novella, The Phantom of Drury Lane by Kate Bateman is another one I highly recommend. And then, of course, the To Ravish a Rogue by Sam Nacosta, since this is already available on Hoopla and it's out early, I recommend this one as well. So those are all my thoughts on the new releases. Like I said, those of course are just my opinions and what I think. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these and if you agree with me, or which ones you're excited for this month, or which ones you think were worth it. Let me know. I'd love to chat about it. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future videos, and I'll see you in my next one.